Just have class outside.
Yeah.
I tried it. It's a disaster. Remember, you were in
Yeah.
Ever again. Okay. A couple announcements. So you saw my hardline approach to your late test. Yes.
Yeah.
So no more late tests, but I'm extending the deadline. Is Sunday noon okay for y'all?
Which is Sunday night.
No, because I grade in the afternoon. In the evening, I don't want to do it. I don't want to think about you guys Sunday night. So Sunday noon, but you know, I might get to it at 3 p.m. I don't know, right? So you could still try and squeeze it in.
Don't worry, I don't want to think about myself at that time.
I can imagine. So is Sunday noon feasible? Like, yeah? How many, raise your hand if Sunday noon is feasible? And you know, you guys remember, this is a hybrid class, meaning there's a whole extra hour that we're not meeting, right? So this is the time where you do the test, right? Or where you start thinking about it. We should be meeting for, actually, right after class, you could start doing your test, right? Because normally, right, remember, we meet till 6 normally. There should be no excuses for late tests. I had like, I think 3 people handed in the test out of y'all. So this is not possible to function like that, okay? So please hand them in on time. And don't be late, because I think this is all overall in all my classes, this craziness. I think it's COVID. COVID messed you guys up.
Yeah.
You forgot how to be students. Now you're just like a mess. Like, so,
Some of us never knew how to be students.
I believe it. Okay, so let's get back on post-COVID track, right? Where you hand in work on time and you're professional. Now, another thing. We spent, I think, 2 whole classes talking about cheating, right? And one of you still, right, still managed to do this. So please, guys, I told you already, I'm psychic. I know when you cheat. I can see it. I'm a little psychic. I have taught so many students. I don't know how I do it. Honestly, it's a gift.
Oh, right. Cheating with your work, not with your relationship. That's what I'm thinking.
What do you mean? Oh no, cheating. Sorry. Oh my God. Yes.
You should really express that in this class.
I'm sorry.
Especially.
Cheating in the test. Cheating in the test. Guys, do not cheat. If you cheat, I will catch you, and you will lose all 15 points of the test. Right. So I prefer you come to me and beg me for an extension. Right. And I might relent, then you do that, right? So if any of you is tempted to do this, just come to me first, okay? If I act like, you know, whatever, then you can cheat, okay? Deal? Right? If I turn out to be a robotic, you know, heartless person, then I get it, right? But you haven't even tried me, okay? So be careful with that. Don't do that. It's disrespectful and it's undignified. Okay, great. Now, on this happy note, let's go to Kierkegaard. And by the way, just checking, Buber is only 1 class, right? Correct? Yeah? Can someone confirm?
Buber?
Buber.
Yeah, he's 1 class.
Okay, great. All right, perfect. All right.
No, 2.
No, really?
Yeah, 2. April 26th and May 3rd.
It's the last book.
Kierkegaard is the last one.
Hey, but April 19th, we don't have class, right?
No.
This is the problem. Okay, guys, change in the syllabus. Please take note. April 19th, there's no class, and I put works of love there. So April 26th, I'm going to put it also in Blackboard, but April 26th is works of love, 231 to 246. And then May 3rd is I and Thou, both assignments. So 53 to 69 and 87 to 100. I'll put all the details on Blackboard. And then May 10, you read the right, okay? There's a problem there which I need to fix. Make a note on myself. Okay, today we're going to talk about 2 things. The fruit of love and the source of love. The fruit of love and the source of love. Starting on
Bless you.
49. Okay, so first of all, just a reminder of what Kierkegaard is doing here. So Kierkegaard, if you listen to the introduction, right, to the section, Kierkegaard is he was kind of a rebel, right? He grew up in a predominantly Christian society, but at the time, Christianity was kind of like a social club. You were cool if you were a Christian. You had to be a Christian to be part of the upper level of society. So he kind of drifted away from Christianity. He didn't like it. He found it, he had a lot of issues with it. And then kind of lived his life, right? Kind of lived his life, was a pretty worldly man, right? Had his, did all the things he wanted to do. Got engaged, broke up, broke everybody's hearts, including his. We talked about this in the introduction. And then later, this is a very late work. This is kind of like this is a work of maturity. So very much later, after having basically ruined his life, right? He stumbles upon Christianity again, right? He stumbles upon this time the scriptures of Christianity, not just the churches and the system. He stumbles upon the Gospels. He stumbles upon the teachings and the life of Jesus, right? And he's struck there by a teaching which for him it's like, how you ask yourself, where have you been all my life? This is what he starts to ask these scriptures. He's like, where have you guys been all my life? He stumbles upon a definition of love which for him is so profound and so deep that it changes his whole life, right? And so this book is him looking back at his life through these new eyes, through the eyes of the teachings of Jesus, and you can sense the woman he broke up with, she's on every page, right? And pretty subtle, you can see he's referring really to his relationship, to his broken relationship. So for him, Christianity is not about belonging to a religion. It's about acquiring a profound teaching on love, right? And so this teaching that we're about to study, even though it's coming from the Christian scripture, for him, it's a universal teaching. Anybody can learn from this teacher, right? This Palestinian teacher from the first century, how to love, right? He really finds that there is something very profound and serious going on in Jesus's life and teaching. So anyone really can learn, right? You don't have to be a Christian. You don't have to be connected to that scripture, to that community. The teaching in itself for him is profound enough to share to a wider audience. And this book was really written for non-Christians, right? This was written for his friends, for the people he hung out with in the bars or in the wherever he went, right? So this is really him trying to explain, this is what it means to love based on these teachings, and this is what I discovered about love, and I wish I had known this sooner. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, so we're gonna start with one very short teaching by Jesus. He quotes here Luke 6:44. This is one of the Gospels, and this is one of the sayings of Jesus. And he's going to kind of write a whole chapter elaborating on this saying, right? So here in this book, he's kind of just reflecting, deepening this teaching, which for him was transformative. So here's the quote by Jesus, right? For each tree is known by its own, I'm on page 23. For each tree is known by its own fruit. For figs are not gathered from thorns, nor are grapes picked from a bramble bush. Okay, so he's going to kind of do a kind of variations on this theme throughout this chapter, right? So main idea that he's getting from this very short teaching is that the lover must be like a tree. So a tree has two components, has fruits, right? And a tree has roots. And today we're going to talk about both, the fruit of love and the source of love. This is connecting to the roots of the tree, right? So, and he's saying all of us, when we love, we should be like a tree. And he's going to go into the details of that. So first thing he's going to say, right, is that love, right, in its mature state, bears fruit, right? So you have immature love, which is just a feeling of love, and you kind of feel really excited about being in a relationship. You're like, yeah, I feel so passionate about this person. I'm madly in love with this person. He says, at that point, he says, this is not yet the fruit. This is just the, what do you call it? This liquid that goes through trees? The sap. This is just, and it's sappy, right? It's no pun intended. It's a sappy moment of the relationship. This is just the sap. But the sap is nothing. All this passion is nothing if it doesn't bear the fruit of love, right? And the problem with most of us, we stay with the sap. And we're like, I love you, baby. You know, I love you. And then we we cheat on them. We lie to them, but we love them, right? Sometimes we even hate them, and it's like, yeah, but that's because I love you that I did that, right? So he's going to say, no, it's not enough. The sap, of course, is important. It's important to fall in love, to have these passionate feelings, but this is just the sap. Eventually, the sap is there to enable you to bear the fruits of love. In other words, your actions have to reflect your emotions. It's not enough to have strong emotions. You have to have strong actions, fruits. It's not enough to be a pretty tree. You got to bear fruit. That's what he's saying here. So let's read this quote together where he says this. Page 25. No, page 29. Okay, so I'm in the middle. Will you see the little number 7?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 2 lines after. Are you there nevertheless? Who is there? We have Amir. Okay. All right. Nevertheless, he says, one should not love in word and with devices of speech only, he reads, right? And neither should one regard these as a sure marks of love. So if someone comes and tells you, I love you, baby, I'm so in love with you, I'm passionately, it's just a sap, guys. Don't be fooled. Now, it doesn't mean person is inauthentic or lying. Sap is real, right? But it's not yet the full mature love, right? So he continues and he says, on the contrary, by such fruits or by their being merely leaves, he corrects himself, one should know that love has not had time for growth. Okay, so this is very important, right? In other words, the sign of mature love is that your actions are as loving as your emotions, as loving as your words. There is a correspondence between your actions and your emotions. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Right, many of us will fall in love with people who don't have much fruit. And they tell us, you know, they love us and so forth. And so what should we do with those people, right? So this is actually a very hopeful message, right? If you're with someone who doesn't, their love, right? They say they love you, but their actions are not that great. And you feel tempted to not believe them when they say they love you. Kierkegaard is saying, no, you can believe them, right? They're genuine in their love, right? But just the problem here is not that they're not genuine. It's not that they don't love you. It's that their love has not matured yet to the point of bearing fruit. So we should not immediately dump, right, people whose words don't correspond to their actions, right? Because Kierkegaard is saying their love is simply in the beginning stage, right? And what is happening here is not that they don't love you, it's not that they're lying to you, it's not that they're not being sincere, it's that their love is not yet adult love. Their love has not yet matured to the point of bearing fruit, and probably it's the same with us, right? Okay, so that's the first. So he continues and he says, this sap, right, this feelings of love that are very intense, actually have a purpose. They're not just there to make us feel good. Their purpose is to shape and form your heart in a way that you become a better person. And I know we've all had this experience, right? You fall in love and your little sister, right, steals something from you and you don't get mad at her because you're so on a high, right? How many of you experienced the high of love where you're nice to everybody because you're in such a good mood because you're in love, right? No, Poplevsky haven't yet reached the right? So you say there's something powerful there in this emotion, right? So Kierkegaard, unlike Kant, right? Kant would be like, the hell with emotions, you know, you have to love because it's the duty. No, Kierkegaard is saying, no, the emotions is important. This rush of love that you have is important. Why? Because it opens up in you the desire to transform yourself, it molds your heart, it makes you somebody who wants to become a better person, right? And a lot of us, when we're still high on love, usually we're pretty nice to, we're pretty nice to be around, right? People are, they see the glow, the smile, whatever, we're very pleasant. And so he's saying, right, this love that we're feeling, the goal of it is to transform us. The goal of it is to what he calls shape our heart, to kind of mold our heart into a more loving heart. So here he says that here in the last paragraph on 29. It's really beautiful quote. It is said of certain plants that they must form hearts. The same must be said of a man's love. If it is really to bear fruit and consequently to be recognized by its fruit, it must form a heart. So your love is not enough just make you feel fuzzy and happy. Your love is there to begin this inner transformation. This love is there to begin to mold your heart into a more loving heart, right? Any love, this is why love is so good, right? Any love story you're involved in is an opportunity, is an incentive for you to become a better person. Any relationship is the golden path to becoming a better person. The bad and the good in the relationship, both are there to help us become better people. So that's what Kierkegaard is saying. Let's really allow the love that we're feeling to transform us. The goal of love is to transform us. That's the goal, right? There's no other goal. Okay. Any questions so far before I continue? Yes, Epstein.
He says that love always transforms us for the better.
No, it can.
It can. Oh, it can. Okay, then that's my question.
Obviously, yes. He says love can. Sorry, I should have been clearer, right? So it's not that it does, because obviously a lot of us become horrible sometimes in the love situation. He's saying this is anytime you're in love, it's the beginning of possible transformation if you allow it, right? Remember when we did the Song of Songs, we talked about love as a crucible, right? And sometimes we just have to stay there and burn and allow the love and the difficulties and the challenges to change us. This is kind of what he's saying. See?
So the sap of passion would gradually transform you.
Should.
But like in the process, should you begin to bear the fruits of love, as in your actions go in sync with your words, then that is when you start transforming. Like that
when your actions are natural, right? So at first, of course, you gotta fake it till you make it sometimes, right? You gotta try to be nice and so forth. But as you act in this direction, as you try to bear the fruit of love, interestingly, you begin to more naturally do so, right? So that's the idea, right? It's not enough to just have strong feelings. You also have to have strong actions, right? In that sense. Okay. Okay, so it's interesting because there's another quote where he talks about the sign that we have truly loved someone, right? Sign that you truly love someone, that your love has matured to the point of the fruits, is that when things go bad, you continue to love. That's sign number one, right? It's easy to love when everything's going well. When things start to go bad, you still love. That's the sign number one. But then it continues. Even when you leave or when you break up, you still love. If you stop loving after the breakup, it shows everybody that your love wasn't real. It was just selfish, right? So he's really saying one ought to love, right? Even beyond the relationship, that love should be there, right? He says this in the quote. North?
She's asking what's the sign of mature love?
Yeah. So here's a quote here for that, page 25. Okay. See the big paragraph there in the middle. For example, one may make the mistake of calling love. You see that? Yes? Another person?
25.
The middle of the second paragraph. One may make the mistake. Who else is there? 1, 2. Okay, great. So here he's talking about this issue. For example, one may make the mistake of calling love that which is really self-love. When one loudly protests that one cannot live without the beloved, but will hear nothing about love's task and demand, which is that he deny himself and give up the self-love of the erotic love, right? And so forth. So he's saying here, right, it's not enough to just say you love or feel love. There is the heavy task of self-denial, right? And this is actually very interesting reference here to the way that Jesus loved, right? And this is something that we don't study enough, I think. This notion of sacrifice, right? Laying down your life to the point of death. We talked about death with Ruby, right? This is the same idea. This is the idea of being able to die to yourself for the sake of another. This is love. It is nothing else than that, right? And this is why it is such a high level thing that most of us don't reach, right? Most of us, we're in it for whatever we can get, right? Most of us have not understood that the high love, the true love, is the ability to lay down your life for another, metaphorically, right? Doesn't mean you die, but you really are able to sacrifice aspects of yourself for the sake of that other. That is the highest love that exists on this planet. And this is why Kierkegaard was so struck by the behavior of Jesus, right? Because Jesus actually did that, right? He went all the way to death for the sake of the people that he loved. So that's really, if I were you, I would spend some time studying those scriptures, because it is really very powerful, this love that is being played out there. And Kierkegaard was really very moved by that. Yes. Yeah.
So the evolution of love in Kierkegaard's eyes is the sort of the maturity and growth of the tree that bears the fruit. So it would be that the fruit really isn't in season yet until a certain period of time has passed.
For sure, yeah. Of course, it takes time. That's why in the beginning, any of you heard of the first year of marriage? How it's the worst year of everybody's life? Yes. Actually, it is. Why? Because you have this love, but none of you have had time to bear fruit. So you're dealing with, but I mean, you have so much love that you can bear it for the first 3 years. But after 3 years, like, yo, I need fruits here right now, right? So if you haven't grown fruits after the 3 years, you're really screwed as a couple. So those first 3 years is really the time where you have to hurry up and bear fruit, because most of us, we enter the relationship with just sap. We haven't, there has never been in our lives another person to push us to really love. And so these first 3 years of any relationship, whether it's marriage or any type of romantic relationship, actually very difficult, especially if you're living together, right? Because now you're like, oh my God, there is no fruits. And so you have to you have to really start bearing those fruits. Hopefully within that time span, you can get 1 or 2 fruits, because after that, the patience of the beloved is over, right? The rush is over, yes.
Wouldn't Kierkegaard say that if you try to force and gather all these fruits too quickly, then all you're gonna pick is thorns? Doesn't Kierkegaard say that?
You mean if you want to take the fruits?
Yeah, if you're trying to force it so much that you just end up trying to pick up in vain.
Yeah. The beauty of what you're saying is that we have to accept that our beloved bears fruit in his or her season, right? You can't be there talking to a tree and say, bear fruit, goddammit, I need fruit now, right? The tree needs time to bear fruit. And very often we get frustrated with the tree and we never allow the tree to come to its season, right? And so, yes, you're absolutely right that one of the ideas that comes with this idea that, we are a tree is that the beloved, we can't expect them to bear fruit when we want them to bear fruit, right? They will bear fruit in their rhythm. And we talked about attuning to the rhythm of the other, right? We have to wait, right? We talked about this with Song of Songs. There has to be a waiting period where you allow the person the time, right, to bear fruit. Who has the other question? I saw another hand. Yeah, these are all very good questions. Okay, so now so we're good. Most of us pretty much agree we need to bear fruit. The beloved needs to bear fruit, right? That's the ideal situation. Now, yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you explain what does he mean by saying, but every tree is known by its own fruit?
Yeah. You mean the teachings of Jesus, right?
Mm-hmm.
What Jesus was saying there. So Kierkegaard is elaborating, but what Jesus simply meant here is that you can't have, right, somebody who has a wicked heart can't have beautiful fruits. That's kind of what he was saying. Jesus was trying to say you cannot be a hypocrite. You can't think that you can bear fruit if your heart is not pure. So if you know some of the teachings of Jesus, he was trying to internalize spirituality. Spirituality had become a very external thing when he was teaching, during the time he was teaching, and he wanted to emphasize that it's not enough to have outward perfection. How is your inside? How pure is your heart? And that's what he's saying here. Every tree is known by its fruit. Figs are not gathered from thorns, and so forth. So if you bear fruit, it means that you have a clean heart. And if you don't bear fruit, don't go around saying you're pure, because you're not. That's kind of what Jesus is trying to say. It's connected to the inside and the outside. Okay, good. Now, so we're good. I think so far we're pretty much on the same page. Nobody's complaining. Now here's the question. What if you're in a relationship where you're bearing fruit and the other person is not, right? So they're sitting there, just a tiny trunk, right? They have a few branches. They don't have much fruit. And you're like, oh my gosh. And it's not that you don't want to wait, right? Some of us are really willing to wait for that tree to develop. But the problem is you're not getting fed in the relationship. You're not feeling like that person is nourishing you. and you're starting to get yourself depleted, right? How many of you know what I'm talking about, right? So you're giving, and one day you wake up and you're like, I'm tired. Like, I'm not getting anything from you. Like, why should I stay? I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm depleted. So what happens then, right? Kierkegaard seems to be saying the other needs time. It's good to wait, but what happens if you're running out of energy and you're becoming depleted and you're exhausted and the relationship is just too difficult? And Kierkegaard is going to say something very interesting. He's going to say a tree that is bearing fruit doesn't get its nourishment from other trees bearing fruit, correct? You don't have a tree sitting there picking an apple from another tree and saying, okay, now I feel better, right? Right? Where does the tree get its nourishment? Yes, from the soil. Okay, so what Kierkegaard is going to open to us now is a dimension that most of us are not even aware of. What Kierkegaard is saying is like, just like the tree can tap into the soil, into the hidden source of water beneath the soil, so we also can tap within ourselves and access within ourselves a secret source of love, right? So this is very, very interesting and powerful idea, right? So let me say it again so you can write it down, and then I'll take some questions, right? So Kierkegaard is saying is that you don't necessarily need the other to nourish you because you have within yourself a source of love which you can tap into in order to be nourished, right? Now, if this is true, this is a phenomenal finding, right? We don't know yet if it's true, but if it is true, this is very powerful truth, right? This is a very powerful teaching because that means that no matter what are the circumstances, no matter what I'm going through, no matter how my beloved is treating me, no matter how much they can give me, I can access this at any point and thereby feel nourished and strong and keep going no matter what is going on outside, right? This is the repercussion of this. This is very powerful teaching, right? If it is true, which we'll have to figure out. Okay, so let's get a few questions. It's probably Epstein and then Bob Epstein.
Like self-love. Like if you're able to like get over yourself and like love yourself more and not care about the other person, it's self-love.
So it's connected, right? Self-love is you're able to love yourself, meaning you're able to access this, right? So we'll see that it's slightly different from self-love because this source for him is not reduced to the self, it's a deeper layer, which we'll talk about in a second. Let me finish the argument and then I'll take the question. So now, this hidden source, what is it, right? And how come most of us are not even, actually, let me ask you, how many of you are aware that you have a hidden source of love within yourself that you can tap into? Anybody? Okay, a few, not many, okay, right? So what he's saying now is that all of us have it. It's just that most of us do not have the knowledge of it or do not know how to connect to it. So let's read a little bit about it and then I'll take some questions and then we'll see where to take it from there. Okay, so he says this here on page 26. On the second section, from whence comes love. Are you there? Yes, one more
Where?
person. Page 26, second section, from whence comes love. Are you there? Yes, okay, good. All right, so here's Kierkegaard beginning to open for us this dimension of the hidden source. From whence comes love? Where does it have its origin, its source? Where is the place, its stronghold from which it proceeds? Certainly this place is hidden or is in that which is hidden. There is a place in a human being's, this is the line you underline, most inward depths. From this place proceeds the life of love, right? So right now he's just affirming, right? We have no way of knowing yet whether this is true. He's just saying it's there. We don't even know yet how to tap into it, right? He's just opening us this possibility. He continues to explain, page 27, second paragraph. Now he's going to use more religious language, but we can also understand this philosophically. The hidden life of love is in the most inward depths, unfathomable, and still has an unfathomable relationship with the whole of existence. Now here's a beautiful quote. As the quiet lake is fed deep down by the flow of hidden springs, which no eye sees, so a human being's love is grounded still more deeply in God's love, right? So what he's saying is very, very interesting. He's saying within each one of us, there's a source, which is actually divine love. And we carry this within each one of us. And we have access to it And if we knew how to tap into it, we would never go hungry or thirsty or get tired or get depleted or get exhausted or start to hate, start to resent. We would always be able to go back to this source for healing, for strength, for courage. I mean, this is amazing news. I don't know why you guys are not cheering right now, because if this is true, this is the end of all problems, correct? This is the end. We can just, it's over. There's no more problems. No more. Because no matter what is going on outside of you, you have this place you can go and rest and have healing. And it's within you. You don't even have to go to a cathedral, a church, a synagogue. You don't even have to join a sect or a cult. You can tap into it yourself, right? Now, he's using Christian language, but actually you can also speak of this philosophically. Remember in the introductory lecture when I talked to you about these two dimensions, where you have, well, remember, it's in contrast to Plato, right? Plato said there's the material world, and then you have to leave the material world to access the ideal world. And remember how the existentialists were like, no, we don't want to do that. We want to find the ideal world within the actual world. This is where we are. That's what Kierkegaard is saying. This deeper dimension, this metaphysical dimension, right? Metaphysical, M-E-T-A, physical, metaphysical. This metaphysical dimension is not somewhere outside of the world. You don't have to leave behind your humanity to access it. It is found, and we'll see, within yourself, right? Okay, so, any questions so far? Yes, Epstein.
This still doesn't solve your problem per se. You can find love with God and you can find it within yourself, but it doesn't change the fact that the relationship between you and another person has no love.
Ah, very good. Good. I'm keeping that in mind. We'll talk about that. Very good. Excellent. Poplaski.
So this sort of like, I kind of like, in some sense, see it sort of like how back in Kant, where he talked about respecting self-dignity and self-integrity. I sort of see like a similarity of where sort of is able to find that sort of divine love that's within themselves. They can sort of, what we can't say, sort of maintain their dignity and retain the respect within the relationship while also being committed to the relationship.
Okay, good. Yes, yes, yes. This is a very, I mean, this is like, this is pure magic. I mean, if it's true, you know, I mean, this is an amazing thing that we have, this treasure, right? Actually, it's interesting because we talked about this. Remember the ocean in the water jar that Rumi talked about? Remember the treasure in jars of clay? That is a quote from the Apostle Paul that I believe Rumi is familiar with. This is what Kierkegaard is talking about. We have this treasure in jars of clay. We have this ocean in a water jar. And so he's not the only one saying this. A number of people have been saying this. The key, of course, is, you know, we need to learn to tap into it. This will be interesting, right? Yes.
If we can, like, if we have this hidden source and we can heal ourselves, I mean, of course, in every relationship you have problems, so you're not gonna leave right away. But like, let's say it's a really terrible, like, abusive, whatever relationship. If you had that hidden source, then wouldn't that give you the strength to leave? Or like, cause you're healing yourself, you're just like, you're gonna step away. Like, it makes you,
yes.
Like, does it make you stay?
So this is what we're going to find out in the next couple of weeks. We're going to find out that the source doesn't only heal you, can heal the relationship. We have to see how, right? We don't know yet, but I'm anticipating. So yes, you will have the strength to leave, but you also have the strength to stay, right? So we'll talk about that. I'm getting there slowly. For now, just on the source. Yes, it's going to be. Sorry?
Can you define divine love one more time?
So he's saying it's unfathomable. I can't define it. He's just saying there is a source which for him is divine, but divine, we don't know, right? What he means is that it's something beyond human, supernatural, metaphysical, divine. Yes. For sure it's complicated, but more than, the source is not complicated. The relationship is complicated, right? But the source is very simple. Remember, it's just a spring, right? That you can just drink from. If we knew how, right? That's the key.
Would he say that you have to love yourself before you can love somebody else?
So it's connected, right? It's going to say, until you have learned to drink from this source, you cannot pour out to the other. You cannot nourish the other until you have been nourished by the source. This is very true, right? Until you've learned to drink from this source, what do you have to offer, right? Yes.
But I thought that Kierkegaard said in the last pages that like by depending on the other person, you're able to grow with them throughout the relationship, even if you're not able to love on your own selves, I guess. On your own. Does it make sense?
Explain in Kierkegaard, you said? Or in the
I might be
Song of
wrong.
Songs.
Oh, maybe the song.
Song of Songs is like they're thrown together, they're immature, and they grow together, right?
Okay, but
Yeah.
Kierkegaard would say that you
This is
can't
different.
grow through.
Yeah.
Through depending on each other,
Because it's a different strategy.
Okay.
Song of Songs is just hang in there and change, right? That's one strategy. This is a different strategy, which Song of Songs doesn't talk about. It does, but I would have to go back to the text, and we didn't study that. Song of Songs has a notion of that, but Kierkegaard is talking differently. He's saying, if you connect to this, you have the strength to go through anything. Song of Songs didn't talk about its source, at least not the way we studied it. Song of Songs is just like, stay with it, hang in there, change, and you'll make it, right? It's different. I'm giving you so many strategies. There are many, many strategies. Anything else before we continue about this source? Okay, now, this is true, that there is such a source, and this is humongous news, and you guys should be like devouring me with your eyes right now, like how? The $1 million question now is how do we tap into it? Make sure you write this down. The $1 million question is how do we tap into the source? Do we have to be a Christian? Do we have to follow Jesus, right? Who can tap into this source? Now remember, for Kierkegaard, this is humanity. Everybody has this, Christian, Jewish, Buddhist, agnostic, you have the source. How do we tap into it? That's the $1 million question. And the answer to this question, we will find out next time. It's in the next text. It's going to tell us the position we have to take in order to tap into this source. I'm leaving you. Now you're going to read. Every single person is going to read. Finally, I got you to read the whole text. You'll be like, where's the source? Where's the source? I'm not seeing. Right? Okay, so we will continue. And your questions that you asked, you also, they will be answered as we get into the deeper levels of this source. But this is amazing news if it is true. And if we can learn to connect to it, then it's over. There are no more problems in this world. It's finished. We're in heaven. Nirvana. Okay? So we finished early. This is the second good news.
Oh, wow.
And I will see you. Have a happy break.
Thank you.
I will see you in a couple weeks. Yes.
Will the assignment still be due next Tuesday? Or
No, when we come back.
when we come
I'll
back?
write everything on Blackboard.
Okay.
Because all the pieces.
Sure. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So one last question. For